Kia ora, it's Carolyn Young here, Chief Executive at Retail NZ, and welcome back to Retail Unplugged. Grab a coffee and take a break. Today we're joined by Anthony Watson, Country Manager from Visa New Zealand and South Pacific. Welcome back, Anthony, and it's great to have you back again.
Kia ora, and thanks for having me again, Caroline. Really appreciate it. Great to be here.
Yeah, look, we're going to continue our chat about security, fraud trends and emerging technologies that will impact on New Zealand retailers. I guess, Anthony, what are some of the main themes that come up when you talk about security issues with merchants, clients, and partners?
Yeah, I mean, we know scams and fraud are still top of mind for so many businesses out there and consumers, and as they should be, frankly. You know someone who's been a victim of a scam or some sort of fraud, you'll know that it can be quite distressing and really upsetting for those who have been impacted. And fraudsters know it too. They're finding ways to use emotion and achieve outcomes by using a range of kind of tactics to control how people behave in certain circumstances. And for example, researchers have found there's about 500 different scam emails, 500,
Wow.
which I think is an incredible number. And they're all in circulation related to the Israel-Hamas conflict. And they have phishing links to these illegitimate charity websites that people fall victim to. Visa had recently launched a biannual threats report, and we found a scam called pig butchering is on the rise. I know.
What is pig butchering? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I know it's quite a confronting name, and it alludes to the practice, I guess, of building a relationship with an individual or individuals, and then luring him into this false sense of security to commit some sort of fraudulent act. And threat actors are using social media, dating websites, or apps to lure those victims into online relationships before they convince them to invest in these fake currency platforms or cryptocurrency platforms. Just in last year, I read this recently in November, the US Department of Justice announced the seizure of about 9 million in cryptocurrency from these types of scams, which is a staggering number.
That's a huge number, right? The idea that people are phishing with fraudulent emails with good purpose in mind. So, targeting on the emotions of people about wanting to give to a cause, a worthy cause, and it's all just a scam and they're taking your money is heartbreaking. But, what sort of other scams should our audience be aware of, especially when it comes into that retail sector?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there are several, honestly, that we could spend quite a lot of time talking about, but I'll just name a few here that I think are really important for the listeners to understand. One is what we call enumeration attacks. They're also known as brute force attacks in the industry, and they're really on the rise. Our Visa's biannual report in 2023, we found about a 40% increase in these types of attacks in the first 6 months of 2023.
Wow.
Now, the attacks involve a hacker. They're using these very automated scripts or software to just repeatedly try guess a card number, the expiration date, the postal code, the 3-digit CVV value that's on the back of the card. And they will typically target merchants who are providing online shopping facilities. So really, really targeted, and lots of attacks that are coming through in that area. The second one I would mention is what we refer to as triangulation fraud. Now, these are where fraudsters create fake businesses and websites, and they offer bargains or in-demand or luxury good type services. And as tempting as they often are, they are not genuine. So you certainly want to steer away from those and just make sure you've really looked into who the merchants are and the types of businesses before you go ahead and buy some of those goods. What looks really good often is too good to be true.
Yeah, it's that old saying, isn't it? If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. So if your gut instinct tells you that it's not quite right, then don't go there.
Just pause and take a good look at it. The third one that I think is really important is a surge in targeting gift cards that I'm sure a lot of the listeners are very familiar with. So fraudsters are manipulating the gift cards in store. They're altering barcodes or tampering with the packs themselves. Once that gift card is then loaded with some of the credit, the threat actors or the criminals will immediately cash out the full balance because they have those details on hand. They'll know when it's been loaded. Some of the security tactics that the listeners can think about could include additional enclosures in the gift card packaging or the tamper evident type packaging so that the barcodes are a little bit more protected. or to be honest, just adjusting the physical location of where the gift cards are being advertised within the retail stores themselves. So you've got a bit of a line of sight of what people might be doing.
Yeah, so if they're right by the counter, that you've got staff that are seeing them all the time, people can't access them and manipulate them before they bring them to the front, right? So I think customer service is really important in retail, and that's that sort of thing, is that customer service. If you're there and you're engaging with people and you can see what they're up to, they're less likely to be able to do bad things in your store. Look, it's clear that the fraudsters, these are their jobs, right? They're upping their game and
Yeah.
they're really technical. But Visa's always said that security needs to be kept in place, keep pace with innovation, and I think that's really critical. So we've seen some really incredible examples of innovation in practice. And can you tell us about some of those, innovative things that you've been up to?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would say, firstly, over the past 5 years, Visa's invested more than $9 billion in security. And it's this investment that ensures all the participants can stay one step ahead of fraudsters to the extent possible. A great example of innovation that's working in the background of retail payments is this term of tokenization. That was first introduced globally back in 2014. Visa tokens replace the sensitive personal data with what we refer to as a token that only Visa can unlock and decrypt. And that conceals all that sensitive payment data that the criminals are looking for, and just makes payments a lot more secure, along with being virtually useless to scammers if they were to access that information. As a result of some of that, and a recent milestone that you should be aware of, we issued about 1 billion tokens in Asia Pacific, which is a large number. That's been linked to about a $2 billion uplift in the region's digital economy throughout 2023. So some really big numbers there. Gets a lot larger when we think about this more globally. That number stands at about 10 billion tokens that we've issued. That generates about 40 billion in incremental
Wow.
e-commerce revenue for businesses. So it's an enormous amount of money. But I think importantly, it's saved about 650 million in fraud in the last year alone, which is a heck of a lot. Obviously, if you put that number of tokens issued globally into perspective, that's more than double the number of physical cards that Visa has worldwide. And as it stands, it's a bit of a testament, I guess, to the strength of security across the global payments ecosystem.
Yeah, and look, anything that can be done to make payments more secure and give people more confidence and trust in the system is invaluable, I think. And so that's really amazing and phenomenal numbers. And look, when you mention payment tokens, they conceal payment information. For that, it's really technical, right? So for those of us that aren't payment experts, can you just describe for us really what exactly is a token? And would a consumer be able to spot the difference between a token and a Visa payment, I guess?
Yeah, a great question. And this is one that comes up a lot. So I think, to put it really simply, imagine a token as just a unique digital identifier that replaces that very traditional 16-digit card account number that we see on the plastic cards that we have in circulation, and that can be used for digital card payments. So unique tokens can be generated for individual retailers and use cases. Ultimately, it just ensures that the account details are safe and not at risk of being exposed or compromised when fraudsters and criminals are trying to get access those details. I think one of the great things about tokenization that it can just seamlessly integrate into the user's shopping experience. So it's really easy for a consumer to understand, and it doesn't impact anything that the business has set up to facilitate online shopping.
Yeah.
I think a great example of the security innovations being incorporated in this really frictionless way. And we've issued in New Zealand alone about 3 million of these tokens to date and growing, which is great. From a risk and security perspective, I think the benefits of tokenization really can't be understated. At Visa, we've seen about a 58% reduction in fraud for e-commerce transactions when they're tokenized. So I think that's a really positive signal that businesses and the audience should be aware of. I think where an example of where tokenization can help retailers and consumers, and I spoke about reputational risk in one of the earlier conversations we had, we would all be aware of those recent data breaches that happened with the likes of Medibank and Optus in Australia. Thankfully, not here in New Zealand,
Yeah.
but two large compromises. If payment details were leaked in that example, tokens would have been useless to the criminals and the hackers who got access to it.
So, really, I guess simply put, tokens are a secure way forward in terms of payment transactions, and gives, businesses and consumers that extra layer of confidence and trust in the system.
That's exactly right. It's a very industry used term that we have. The best way to think about it is the security and convenience that it creates for both businesses and consumers.
Yeah. Look, thank you so much for joining us today, Anthony. It's been great once again to chat and to hear how Visa are supporting retailers and consumers in New Zealand. For more information, do visit visa.co.nz. There's a wealth of information there. And also be sure to listen to the other episodes that we have in this series. I hope you had a good coffee break. Thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to Retail Unplugged on your preferred channel so you can keep up to date with all the industry knowledge. Until next time, ka kite anō. Bye for now. Kia ora.